Be sure to follow us on TikTok at MysticSage1 for daily anime content. Hey everyone, it's Saturday, and it's finally time for an all-new My Hero Season 5 review on time. In last week's episode that we went over yesterday, Twice overcomes his trauma in order to save Toga's life. The battlefield fills with thousands of copies of himself, helping out his fellow League members, as well as making copies of them along the way. Twice finally reaches Giran, and in doing so, meets the MLA's leader, Redestro. We learn a bit more of the original Destro's backstory, his descendants' motivation, and a glimpse of his power. The episode ends with Shigaraki coming face to face with Redestro, signaling the beginning of the final fight between the two groups. So, what will end up happening? Well, we're about to find out. Well, not immediately, as we get a quick little scene of Twice freaking out as he measures Toga in order to make a copy of her so he can receive a blood transfusion. Thinking about it, Twice's quirk truly is one of the best out there. Being able to make the amount of copies he can is one thing, but being able to use these copies for medical purposes as well, it's a real shame he went down the path of villainy because he honestly could have been one of the top heroes. But that's assuming he would have even wanted to be a hero, and it would all be up to whether or not society would actually give him a chance. But anyways, let's get back to the episode. We get a little bit more from Spinner, who is doing what he can to lighten Shigaraki's load. Giggity. Once again, the politician who we know as Trumpet uses his meta ability, Insight, to boost the morale of his constituents using his voices, which increases both their mental and physical abilities. Having that speaker mask to increase the range of his voice is definitely pretty cool. We see that Spinner's quirk was really just plain and simple all along. Gecko just gives him those lizard-like looks and abilities. He can stick to walls and is green and scaly. Trumpet mocks him a bit here, concluding that he was probably a shut-in and is only in the league now because he resents the way he was bullied. Which is pretty much right on the money, but is a pretty harsh thing to say, no matter how true it is. Spinner does acknowledge all of this, and how he probably won't accomplish much in his life, but it doesn't bother him because his goals are fully set on seeing the future that Shigaraki wants to create for them. I mean, hey, that's one heck of a goal. However, I think Spinner is definitely in a bit of trouble here. But before we can worry about him, we cut back to the collapsed tower from last episode. We're shown that Giran and a Twice copy was able to survive the collapse, but at the expense of many Twice copies. I wonder if they were given the "you're a copy, it's okay to die" speech that he gave everyone last episode. Anyways, Shigaraki confronts a very big Redestro and decides to mock him and his army of 110,000 warriors by asking him how he feels, as they seem to have completely underestimated the league. Redestro admits that it's made him mad and that he's the kind of guy that stores up his stress, pointing out that doing so has contributed to his balding. But it does seem that storing stress has a purpose, as it's his meta ability. Pretty straightforward. The more stress he builds up, the more powerful and large he can become. Redestro recites a lesson he learned growing up to not judge a person by their quirk, which he thinks is a good lesson, yet flawed, as these abilities have a direct connection to personality, as we've seen with Toga with her blood obsession. This dude bottling up stress as a source of power, and the comparison he draws to Shigaraki with his nature of wanting to destroy everything, and his quirk that, well, destroys everything. As Redestro crushes Shigaraki's hand, he asks him what his burdens are, what he will create, or if he's a hollow man who just wants to destroy without creating anything at all. As this happens, he spots one of his hands. Well, his older sister's hand, rather. Seeing it laying crushed on the ground starts to bring back some of his memories, and that sparks something within him. Despite half of his own hand being crushed, he's able to use Decay on Redestro's finger, without using all 5 of his own to activate it. Redestro comes to the conclusion that Shigaraki is in the middle of a quirk awakening, much like what Toga experienced with her transform, being able to use the quirks of the people she's transformed into. Yeah, I guess you're bound to get a power-up when you're fighting a giant monster every day for months on end. However, this doesn't lock in a win for Shigaraki, as Redestro has trained his stress meta ability to its limits as well, and really hulks out on the little guy. As he flies through the city, Shigaraki gains even more memories, which can only mean powering up is on the way. Before Redestro heads towards him to continue his assault, he gets a panicked call from Skeptic. He warns him to be careful as Gigantomachia has finally arrived and begins to ravage the city. With this new and terrifying threat, as well as Shigaraki surviving his attack, we can see Redestro begin to stress out a little bit more, which obviously is a good thing for him, even if it should be a bad thing. Shigaraki finally answers his question, stating that he only wants to destroy with a smirk on his face. Before we see Redestro go for his big wallop, we flash back to Shigaraki's childhood back when he was Tenko. We see a 5-year-old Tenko being punished by his father for breaking the one rule that he had in his house: no talk about heroes. He forces his son to stay outside and won't let him back in the house until he apologizes for breaking the rules. Everyone in the house has a concerned look on their face, obviously not being comfortable with his treatment of his son, but are too scared to say anything to him. Even as a child, Tenko has the insatiable itch that we see him have today, except his family believe this to be allergies. His mother tries to comfort him and asks him if he still wants to be a hero. He tells his mother why he was playing heroes in the first place. The answer can just be summed down to, he's a damn kid. He asks his mother if his dad hates him. She assures him that he doesn't hate him, and that he's just aware how hard it is to be a hero. Ah yes, the abuse he gives you is to protect you. What a great answer. We see another memory of his sister Hannah showing him a picture of a woman who is supposedly their grandmother. Not only that, but she was a hero to boot. Hannah claims she showed him this picture because regardless of what their dad says, she's cheering him on and wants to become sibling heroes in the future. The look of amazement on this child's face from hearing that he had a hero in his family is just too wholesome. But since we know who this child is, we know it doesn't end very wholesome. That's for sure. Later that day, we see Tenko playing fetch with his dog, when suddenly his hand gets a jolt and the ball slightly disintegrates, making the appearance of his quirk, although he doesn't quite realize it just yet. Suddenly his father bursts outside, questioning about seeing the picture he had in his study. We see Hannah crying about the situation, claiming it was all her brother's idea to save her own skin. As his family just watched him get beat by his father, he tells him that the woman wasn't his grandmother. Rather, she was a savage who abandoned her own child, and that heroes hurt their own families to save complete strangers. Sheesh, what a real gem this guy is. Later in the night, we see Tenko's father reading the letter that his mother left for him, essentially saying she had to leave him to fight bad guys, but her doing so didn't mean that she didn't love. However, he feels it would have been better if his mother had hated him instead. He realizes he went too far as his wife scolds him for raising his hand to his own child, asking him about the family he wanted to build. Switching back to Tenko, as he sits in the backyard crying his eyes out, he's comforted by his dog, Moan. Then the most messed up imaginable happens. His quirk makes a full appearance and disintegrates the poor pupper. All that's left of him is a pile of blood and chunks of his body. Pretty dark stuff there, my hero. Pretty dark stuff. Hannah comes out to apologize to her brother and quickly sees the dog stew on the ground and naturally freaks out. As she runs away, Tenko tries to stop her. In doing so, he completely disintegrates her too, not realizing the situation because, you know, the dude's 5 years old. He believed that horrible stuff happening was from a villain attacking them, and not that he was the one causing it. Although he second guesses himself there, as he realizes that he had a bit of resentment for all his family, as it continually protected his father while watching him suffer. His mother tries to reach out to him as she crumbles to dust. His grandparents naturally are caught up in it as well. Just total devastation. Horrifyingly, his father steps out to see all the destruction, while the words of his mother ring in his head about having a life filled with smiles. As the destruction continues, his father grabs some sort of tool and hits him over the head with it in an attempt to get Tenko to stop. However, all this did was make Tenko legitimately angry with a clear intent to kill. The face this child makes while killing his father is just terrifying, truly. And with all that happening, he claims he no longer felt that itch he had in that moment. And that's the episode, folks. All I can say is, wow. This really feels like a turning point for My Hero as a series. I mean, this was a dark episode. A 5-year-old murdering his entire family in such a gruesome way is definitely not where I was expecting the series to go when I first started watching it. And yet, here we are. We have just 2 episodes left in this season, and I gotta say, I think they're going to be really good. But we'll just have to wait and see. So tell me, what did y'all think of today's episode? Be sure to let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Hey guys, before the video closes out, I just want to thank you so much for bringing your support over here on Mystic Sage. I upload every Saturday and Sunday and strive to bring you guys a review and some fun discussion content, so your viewership means the world. Also, if you want a little more from Mystic Sage, head on over to TikTok and check us out over there for more fun, bite-sized anime videos. I've also got an Amazon store where I sell tons of cool anime merch, so check it out. For real this time though, thanks again for watching. I'm Mystic Sage, and I'll see you next time with some more great anime content.